Hello, this is Ryan, and I wanted to show you some changes to Node Station project I've been working on. To start Node Station, you can just type in node and space server.js, and we'll refresh. Right away, you'll notice that I've kind of changed the layout of the web page, cleaned it up a little bit. Chatting now works. It's not that fancy. Moving around with the arrow keys, you'll notice that I now only land on individual tiles and not in between them. That makes it more Space Station 13-esque. You'll also notice that I've replaced the wiry frame black guy with a sprite that my wife made, and so I'm pretty happy about that. You can no longer move through walls, which is nice, so movement's been pretty fleshed out. We can go over some of that in code generation. You can also press G to grab a item and press D to drop an item. So G for grab, D for drop. And that way you can kind of move items around. Theoretically, you can grab as many items as you want right now. I just only have one kind of item, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. There's been a lot of optimization done on the network code. So if someone were to say, host a server with 10 people in it, I'd be interested to know what kind of performance that would be. I don't have 10 friends, so I'm kind of SOL. Alright, so now that we've gone over that, I was going to mention, I've switched it over to WebGL because the canvas mode in the Kiwi engine for some reason did this weird downscaling thing, like pulsating downscaling thing. It looked really terrible. And so you might have noticed it in the previous video that I've had. So I've switched it to WebGL for now. So let's look at the source code. Kind of go over the changes. The temp map, nothing has changed here. This is the ASCII map. I'm thinking about in the future making this like a tile, the tiled program, an input to this, so you can make your maps visually and then just bring them in. Don't quite know how I'm going to do that yet, but that'll be interesting. I'm now sending a server update time to the client, so they know how long the server is, or how often the server updates, and also who the pawn that the client owns, because they got to know that to center on the pawn. Here is the grab and drop callbacks. These guys just make sure the item is real and it's within range of the pawn, and that the pawn is carrying the item before they drop it. Just, basic dumb checks. These things will probably be expanded on later. They're just bare bones for right now. Let's see here. Here's the chat functionality. You receive a chat message, you send it to all the clients. Pretty straightforward. Little convenience add-on, host port. You can now host port's now a variable, so we're not hard coded in at port 3000. So that's nice if you want to customize your port. So here's the walking code and how this works. So the problem I ran into was how do you get a slow moving pawn, right? I don't want a pawn to move once every 50 milliseconds. That's far too fast. So now I've got this pawn motion ticks left and pawn motion walk speed ticks. So walk speed ticks is, so how you would read this code is if there's a desire to move, which is this line right here, and the pawn is currently standing, so they're not moving around, and we're not being blocked by a wall, then we set our target x and y to the new x and y, we set our state to walking, and then we set our ticks left to the walk speed ticks. And then up here we count down that ticks left until we get to 0. And when we get to 0, finally the pawn's current position will be updated to the target position, and we reset the state to standing. You may also notice this pawn dirty flag. The pawn dirty flag dictates when we send an update about the pawn to the clients. So down here you'll see, oops, wrong button. Down here you'll see if the pawn is dirty, then we actually transmit stuff and set it to not dirty, otherwise we don't do anything. It's a similar thing with the items. So I'm just kind of trying that on, see how that is. Also, if we go to the client side of things, There's been quite a few changes here. We now have an owned pawn and a network clock. Apparently Kiwi supports many different kinds of clock. I just wanted to create a new clock for the network that I won't be time dilating. If I'm time dilating anything, I doubt it. The owned pawn ID is the pawn ID that we're currently following around. I commented out all of the initial Kiwi code. Oop. So apparently my recording software crashes the game for some reason. That's interesting. At least we didn't have it during the live demo, but I've only ever seen it when the recording program is running. So that's kind of disappointing, but I guess that's what you get. The map tile hasn't changed. I haven't created any changes here. Again, so we're gathering server info here, and we're also gathering we're gathering our owned pawn here. It's getting information from the server. You'll notice that add pawn has expanded hugely. It's because we've added shirts and pants and boots to our pawn. So now our pawn has clothes. Right now they're all hard-coded, but this is just kind of giving me an idea of what I want to do, what I want to see in the future. Along that line, I'm kind of disappointed with this. These things have just become kind of giant pools of working with sprites, working with list objects, working with pawn data. These don't really have a flow, and I don't know what I want to do here. These are due for a refactoring, is I guess what I'm trying to say, because this is just a mess. I don't have any order. Everything is done differently depending on whether it's a pawn or an item. I'm still trying to figure out. I'm waiting for the program to kind of tell me what it needs, what kind of commonality I can use to clean it all up. Again, so on the update, we're manipulating all 4 sprites. One for the pawn, one for the shirt, one for the pants, one for the boots. Let's see here. Moving on. A lot of this stuff is just mostly the same with small changes. Here's the code for the chat. So that's how it looks on the client side. So here is the grab and drop functions on the client side. This is just mainly from the pawn's position determine which item to pick up, and from the pawn's position drop an item. The key down has had some serious changes. There are some tricky bits when you've got an HTML form and a game engine running at the same time. So if you've got text in your text box and you press the left and right arrows to change your cursor position, that will also move your character. So how I got around that is basically only move the character if the text box is empty. And this blur thing here is just to knock the cursor out of the text box when I'm pretty sure you're not typing out in it. Key up has pretty much remained the same. So here's the function call that's called by the onSubmit callback on the form. So this actually sends the chat message up to the server. The update has had a major change, a major overhaul. Now this code right here is the code that's used to make the moving fluid. Like I said, now that pawns can only be in individual cells, we need to somehow make a smooth transition. This code does that. How does it do it? Well, it goes through each pawn and it computes the total time of the move. So that's going to be this walk speed ticks times the update time in seconds. And then it's going to compute the time left through some magic. You can figure it out. It's not that hard. I just don't want to go through it. Then we calculate a percent based on those things to give us a percentage through the walk that we're currently in. And we do some other magical math which doesn't take a genius to figure out, but come down to it, and then we apply that new X and Y position to all of the sprites, so the pawn moves as one. And that's it. This right here is the code that centers the camera on the owned pawn. Again, the math here is not too magical, so if you're interested in it, feel free to dig through it. This is all up on GitHub. It's all open source. It's available for you to look at, tinker around, and use. I'm trying to make this as easy as possible to launch so that you can use it. Again, sorry about the game crashing in the background. That's totally the studio. I don't know why it's getting into a fight with my computer. That is beyond me. Well, thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll get another one of these things out here sooner or later. Bye.